So let me start with where the doctor led when it comes to the actual solutions, integrating AI, integrating smart solutions into literally getting results, and getting results with energy. So, what are the main obstacles to applying AI, and do you believe they are the same for all industries?
Let me first put this question into context, and I would like to reflect on the previous panel, excellent panel. I would say that, let's start with the question, why do we need AI? And you talked about that in previous panel about the smart factory or smart sort of home. I would say there are two reasons, trends that are coming through now, IoT and flexibility. And we talked about both these trends on the previous panels, and now we're talking about tomorrow. So we talked about this smart factory, and the factories are not smart, and the homes are not smart. And
True.
you feel that yourself, your home is not smart. I have all my lights, all my window shades, and I don't know, hundreds of things that are connected, and I have probably 10 apps on my phone to control them all. But this is as dumb as this can be. I'm trying to find words to name all these lights, so I can ask Siri to turn on and off these lights. I made the mistake to name the light in the hall light. So I asked it to turn off hall light. Yes, I have turned off all lights, and I was sitting in the dark. So this is as stupid as it can be, but the things are changing. We are seeing actually, finally, an Internet of Things. We have a protocol coming up, the Matter protocol, where Amazon, Apple, and everybody has agreed on the same protocol. So all these things are going to speak the same language, which is necessary to actually make them smart. So instead of 10 apps, you will have one app. And then you will have no app, because you will have it so smart that you don't need an app. And I would, and the second thing there is what Sam was talking about, is the flexibility. The importance to understand that the value of flexibility, it's an asset that every energy user is actually producing flexibility. But you don't have the tools to mine and monetize this flexibility. So it's not showing on your income statement. If it would, you would be really looking at it very closely. But in order to mine and monetize it, to mine it, you need AI, and to monetize it, you need the grid, the market, to put it all together. And let me take an example of a future. We're talking about tomorrow. So we talked about the smart home, when all these appliances talk together. Then the car can tell the chillers to turn on because you are heading home. You don't have to think about it. It just happens. But the more sort of exciting future is when you put this all into the grid. So when you plug your Tesla in at night, it can actually start to trade the flexibility in the battery. And you can sort of put some energy into the crane that is lifting that. When all the cranes, we are talking about that, when all the cranes are lifting at the same time, the port doesn't have enough electricity. It just borrows flexibility from all the Teslas that are plugged in, and the market finds a spot price for it. That's how we see the future. But in order to get this future, you need a lot of AI.
Definitely. Now, one part I really adore about what you said regarding having a unified, a single app. Now, with a single app, there comes the responsibility of the user to utilize that app for smart solutions, for smart saving of energy, for smart applying of energy. Now, if we make the decision not at the user part, partially at the user part, but AI to have most of the decision when it comes to energy efficiency and taking commands, would that be better for the future?
I mean, the complexity is so, I mean, just for my home, I have hundreds. I cannot imagine how many. I mean, we're getting into millions. And so you can't really expect the user to do anything. You have to learn. That's why you have to go beyond analytics into machine learning. You have to learn the behavior. So that's where I say you go from one app to no app at all. because you can't really expect the user. You have to go beyond that. And just one thing that I want to plug here is that with the Open Blue, you need to really, because of the grid, you need to hook up into the homes, because you need to be on the forefront of this trading, so you can actually be the one that is trading the Tesla energy with the crane. So you can't be focusing only on the bigger sides. You have to go into the consumer market as well.
Amazing. And when consumers here in Saudi, last year, it was as well announced, implemented when it comes to solar panels, to have on-grid solar panels and the whole constitution, Dastur, solar panels to be applied in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So there are steps and there's importance of what Saudi Arabia is doing. And let me direct this to you, Dr. Mohanad. Saudi government has recently announced plans for marine and navy service and maintenance. Johnson Controls Arabia is looking to build marine service capabilities at King Abdullah when it comes to the port. Why is this important when it comes from your perspective?
Thank you. Too bad His Excellency left us. But truly, the National Industrial Strategy talked about different sectors that with great level of potential for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in upcoming years. And in particular, it talked about Marine and Navy. Luckily, we started our discussion with our colleague here, Jay and Sheikh Saleh, in the port about a year ago to set up a center in King Abdullah Economic City for servicing and maintaining equipments for ships that are passing by the Red Sea. We know that between the Red Sea and the Gulf, Saudi Arabia is connecting 3 continents. About 25% of the global shipping lines happens through these, either through the Red Sea or the Gulf. However, and that's why I'm referring to the National Industrial Strategy. When you look at the Saudi annual purchasing compared to other countries in the region, and then when you look at the Saudi contribution when it comes to aftermarket services in marine and navy ship, it is greatly underserved. The National Industrial Strategy actually clearly provides numbers. Saudi buys about $10 billion annually. And I'm talking about Navy, and I'm talking about commercial and leisure type of ships, about $10 billion annually, if my memory serves me right on that number. But then what you see the contributions on the aftermarket opportunities, we're talking about no more than $10 million opportunities, or at least what got served in Saudi between the year of 2017 to the year 2020. So this is, truly creates big opportunities for us as a company. And if you were to ask me why do you think you're well positioned to play in this market segment? Luckily, the installed base is there. Johnson Controls is a global leader, not only in buildings, but also when it comes to marine and navy applications. We have our industrial refrigeration systems. We have our fire and security systems. We have our even cooling for comforts system in some of those applications. And above all, we do have the expertise in Saudi, because when we looked at what does it take to win, yes, you need to have the installed base, you need to have the right traffic, and you need to have the capabilities on the country to be able to serve that business. We have teams in Saudi serving the oil and gas industry, and we found out there is actually good overlap between skills needed for the marine and navy business versus skills that we're already utilizing for our oil and gas sector. We also understand here the play is not only on the aftermarket piece, but also on the manufacturing piece. So we are now being qualified to bid for jobs and this thanks to you for that introduction a year ago, Jay. We did actually for Ras Al Khair project. The kingdom is building the platform to build ships. We also, His Excellency spoke today about the Saudi military.
Yes.
And we have been visited about a year ago with our colleagues from GAMI, the organization for military. And they've explained to us the Saudi military is interested in outsourcing many of these marine services to the private sector. And they told us clearly, get ready, because this is where things are heading. So it is I mean, good growth opportunities for the company, and we feel that we are well positioned with the value proposition that we have and we have built at the regional level, at the local level, and also at the global level.
That's, as a CEO of a leading company in HVAC and building sustainability in the region itself, what sets you, or what sets Johnson Controls from others? How Johnson Controls is special from others and from competitors, let's say?
Thank you. I could market the company with that question. But truly, I mean, as we have spent the past couple of days, we do talk about the latest and greatest technologies that we're bringing to the kingdom, and we are showing off some of those technologies as we speak. We're talking about the operational technologies. We're also talking about the information technology and how you link the two to the point that just got discussed. But one thing that came to mind as the discussion was happening, and we were talking about smart cognitive, what constitute that, how do you actually incentivize consumers, and how do you hit them where it hurts the most. With that, I want to say we are classified ESCO company, Class A, and the model is very simple. You come, you do energy auditing of a building, and you go to the super ESCO company or the end client, and you say, hey, we find opportunities for energy saving, and we propose certain energy saving model, what we call ESMs. And with Tershid being one of our, major clients, they look at the proposal and they study it, and then they ask you to provide financial collaterals against those promises. And for us, it's very simple. We have about a couple of hundreds of million riyals worth of projects under execution now. If we don't deliver on our promise that, hey, we're gonna ensure that the energy bills will be reduced year end, they go automatically and deduct from the promised savings that we provided. Simple formula, very effective. I'll be very frank with you, started that about 3-4 years ago, and my colleague here, Osama Heba, knows the first projects we did, we were not as successful. We've learned that lessons from the first projects, and now when I'm reviewing the sheet, call it the KPIs, the monthly KPIs about our performance, I'm seeing that we are overachieving in all ongoing projects. So when it comes to, what set us apart is truly our ability. When we do these energy auditings, we're not only looking at the operational technologies, we're looking at operational technology, controls that are installed in the system. We're not only looking at chiller technology. Sometimes we look at chillers, we look at VRF, we're looking at water pumps, we're looking at the FCUs, the AHUs, and the controls. And so we look at building in a holistic way. And that for us is truly a differentiator. Building technologies do play a major part. We talked about 40% the contributions of buildings, but if you look at the operational side, it's about 29%, and we are at the core of that 29%. I know we didn't talk about fire suppressions and fire detection system, but we are also global player when it comes to that, and this is all part of the portfolio that we have under the umbrella of Johnson Controls Arabia, and truly that for me is, and we're a manufacturer of these technologies here in the kingdom. So that's my. Thank
Definitely amazing. Now, I like the answer when it comes to the first part when you talked about the marine and we talked about, let's say, the King Abdullah Port. Now, that, if you don't mind, takes me to Mr. J when it comes to King Abdullah Port. Now, it is the largest privately owned and developed deep water port in the region. How does King Abdullah Port fit into the vision of 2030?
Thank you for the question. I've been working in the kingdom now for the better part of a decade.
MashaAllah.
So I've seen quite a lot of change and transformation take place in the country. With regards to transport and the logistics sector, I have to say I couldn't wish to be in a more exciting country at the moment. I don't think there's anywhere else on the planet that's trying to achieve what Saudi Arabia is trying to achieve in logistics. I often find myself saying that they're basically turning the logistics supply chain on its head, which here is a fantastic thing. And the progress made in the kingdom over the last few years has been singularly impressive. King Abdullah Port is a landlord. So we're a landlord, we're a master developer, and we're an operator. So we work with partners to come and invest in the port. And this panel's topic was tomorrow. Actually, I was reflecting on what we've achieved over the past few years, and to a very large extent, today is tomorrow. So we've been awarded the status as the world's most efficient port by the World Bank. And in 2020, we're the second most efficient, and in 2021, we're the most. Let me tell you, there's a huge difference between being number one and number two. Now, this award is fantastic, and I'll probably go on quite a lot about it, because who knows what will happen next year. But the thing about today being tomorrow is that we were recognized as the world's most efficient because of some things we did a decade ago. And a decade ago, we were thinking of this point in time, 10 years' time. What will the future look like? And I have to give the credit to the investors and the shareholders of the team who a decade ago were predicting the future. Ships were smaller back then.
Yes.
They might be 150, 200 meters long. Today, they're 400 meters long. 400 meters long, one vessel. 10, 15 years ago, they would carry 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 containers. Today, they carry 24,000 containers. My office looks out onto the Red Sea. It's beautiful. It's the most beautiful office I've ever been in. But when one of these ships passes by, it goes dark in my office. It's like an office building moving by.
Wow.
And so the decisions that were being made there were, where should we put this port? So the geography is perfect. Not inside the Gulf. It's not on the east coast of Africa. It is in the Red Sea, where 13% of the world's ships pass by. When I sit in my office, I can literally see the ships going from Asia to Europe. In many ports around the world, when a ship calls a port, it takes 6, 7, 8, 10 hours to get to the berth. In King Abdullah Port, it takes 15 minutes. When people ask me what's the deviation, I said that there's no deviation really. When you're spending 2-3 weeks going from Asia to Europe, this is minimal. The geography is perfect. And in terms of the design, we were very fortunate to have an opportunity of a greenfield project. So the lines, the design of the port are super efficient. And I talk about this because in the previous panel, you spoke about waste and inefficiencies. And I would imagine that, it's been fascinating listening to all of you talk about the smart systems in buildings. And so I'm the one, in a way, building the building or building the port that you're going to be intelligent inside of. And I guess that if you have a good design, and you're designed for efficiency, that helps your sustainability projects. It avoids the waste, it minimizes the inefficiencies that are there. And the structure that we've built in the port is such that these efficiencies, they last for decades. And I'm going out on a limb there saying that those levels of efficiencies are there for the future because of where it is, because of the greenfield design, because of the excellent opportunities to expand and develop, and to carry through those efficiencies in the future. So I think in terms of our core activities, we're well positioned to take on board the innovation and the smart technology that is coming and being driven. And congratulations, Dr. Mohanad, for all the innovation that you've created and shown off. It's really most impressive. If I'm being asked to predict the future about what would be one of the most important aspects for us to consider in the future, it would be an issue of fuel. So obviously we get 3, 4, 5 ships every day coming in, and these are big monsters, and they're carrying heavy fuel oil, and that's not very popular these days. So the port of the future will need to be able to work out which fuel supply the shipping lines are going to be using in the future. And the jury is very much out on that, as to whether it's gas or it's ammonia or it's green or it's blue hydrogen power. And many different shipping lines are testing out those different technologies. And I think there's very much for an opportunity for Saudi Arabia to work with the shipping lines, with that community, and work out which of those fuels is going to be the most sustainable in the future, and to provide that fuel source in King Abdullah Port. Because if this is going to be the future for the future, then certainly power and fuel supply will be a core component of that.
It's amazing. Interesting that you talked about hydrogen. That takes me to the importance of the future, investing in the future from the perspective of Saudi with hydrogen. And if I go to Mr. Fahd, now hydrogen and how Saudi is leading in that direction through mega projects like NEOM, like Aramco, the line, that shows that Saudi is tackling will tackle a lot of the challenges to do with hydrogen. So can you elaborate on the importance of it and the future-proofing, the ability to use or implement hydrogen as a source of energy in Saudi?
My pleasure, Faisal. Thank you very much for your question. And let me thank Mohanad and Saudi Arabia for inviting me to be here and share my know-how. We spend most of the morning focusing in the 40%, saving opportunity in buildings, which emits carbon. What my discussion will be in the other 60% and the potential there, the potential in the 60% of emissions and the sources and how we can overcome that. Faisal asked specifically about hydrogen. Just follow up on Jay. He's saying, in the shipping industry are open for new fuels. And definitely hydrogen is the fuel choice for tomorrow. And why hydrogen? Well, hydrogen comes from water. Water is plentiful, it's non-polluted. So what you need to do to produce hydrogen, basically, is to break out the atoms of the water and use the hydrogen as a source for energy. And to do that, you need energy to break that. And what Saudi Arabia is pushing is the concept of a green hydrogen. What does that mean? It means using renewables sources, like from wind and solar, to do that breaking. So the whole source, the whole spectrum, is friendly to the environment. So you have renewable energy is used to break out water to produce hydrogen. So that's exactly what the project in NEOM is going to do. NEOM have committed and is working with Air Product and Aqua Power to build the biggest green hydrogen in the world, 650 tons of hydrogen. So Saudi Arabia is betting in that. This is only one of the initiatives that is taking place in Saudi Arabia. Of course, there are some issues with that, some logistical issues. Hydrogen historically has been used close by to the source. So basically, you produce hydrogen in an industry cluster and use it in the industry. So in this case, Saudi Arabia wants to export it, wants to use it elsewhere. So that's what is going to happen. And Saudi Aramco participated in a study where they actually took hydrogen and they liquefy it and into ammonia and send it to Japan. So that was a nice study. So I think working out the logistic is important. That's one of the key challenges, is what to address. Saudi Arabia is positioned very well logistically speaking. Yes. Is in the Red Sea, so it's close to Europe. That's where the market will be. Of course, it will power the ports and the ships, and that's another utilization of that. Another utilization of this hydrogen will be cars and busing and maybe airplanes. And there are PIF and Saudi Arabia have made a panel with several companies to study that and see how to deploy that. And work is already being done
True.
to build gas stations, which also you can fill your car with hydrogen as you go by. Busing as well. So we're tackling all the challenges that needs to be done. But definitely hydrogen, Saudi Arabia will be a key player in the hydrogen production. His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman said recently that we want to be the biggest producer of energy, all kinds of energy, not just oil and gas.
Yes. And please.
May I say something about the 60%? Because he's...
Please, Doctor.
Air Products is a global client of ours. And we have actually now working with them here in Saudi with some of these projects. And we have supplied our material. So we are helping on the 60% as well.
Inshallah, now, going as well, Mr. Fuad, now you talked about hydrogen. Definitely hydrogen is kind of today, a bit of today and a lot of tomorrow. But there's a lot of today that being invested into from the by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, like the investment in Seer that we saw, the first company to do with electrical vehicles, to produce it, as well as PIF did invest in Lucid and did invest in actually going into EVs. So EV does play a role as well in the future, right?
No doubt about that. I think EV is a reality. Electrical vehicles is a reality that's going to be there. Right now, electrical vehicles penetration in the world market is about 2%. It's not a lot, because there's a lot of installed base already of cars using gasoline. So we're starting from very low base. However, if you look at the purchases of cars in the United States and China, it's more than 50%. So more than 50% of people, when they go to buy a car, is going to be an EV vehicle. Actually, Denmark and Norway is the highest penetration of electrical vehicles, and it's 80%. So basically, 80% of the people who go and purchase is electrical vehicles. So it just tells you a little bit about the volume of that. Saudi Arabia participation in the EV industry is really exciting. I'll just remind you of that, take a few minutes to do that. It started in 2018 when PIF were looking for an opportunity to invest. Yeah. And as per Vision 2030, Saudi Arabia is looking under the umbrella of PIF for new opportunities away from oil and gas. So they were investing in different places, and they heard of a company called Lucid. It's a Silicon Valley company is going to produce electrical cars, and they were looking for funding. So PIF put in $1 billion into Lucid as a passive investor. And of course, that 1 billion have multiplied many times over since that time. So from financial point of view, it was a fantastic opportunity, business transaction. However, it also accomplished many strategical issues. It accomplished, the fact is, if we invest, so Saudi Arabia used its leverage with Lucent to convince them to take a look at the Saudi landscape and actually build a factory here.
Factory in Jeddah, yeah.
And Lucent was open to the idea, and they looked at Saudi Arabia regulatory framework, financial framework, infrastructure, human resources, shipping locations, and they went and signed for it. And just a few months ago, they announced that they will actually building a plant in Jeddah.
Yes.
$3 billion worth of investment over the next 10 years to produce 150,000 electrical vehicles per year. That's a huge number. Absolutely. Of course, you can tell it's not going to be for the Saudi market only. It's going to be for export. Of course, there is the infrastructure needs to be built. So Saudi Arabia needs to build the infrastructure, meaning the charging points in cities, in buildings, in clusters, as well as along the highway. And that's being done by the private sector. So EV will benefit Saudi Arabia in many ways. It will be an innovating center where it's become a catalyst for change to build a whole new industry. We all remember what Silicon Valley in the US started more than 100 years ago. It was one company called Hewlett Packard who started there, and eventually it developed to a clustering of industries. I envision that the wujud or the presence of Lucent in Jeddah, producing cars, hiring people from the community. You're going to hire a lot of people, chemical engineers for the batteries, mechanical engineers, automotive engineers. It's to create a whole new industry in the region that will be benefiting human resources,
Definitely.
as well as positioning Saudi Arabia to be an exporter of EV. So I think I was very pleased to hear a few days ago, of course, His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman initiative with SEER. So that's in line with what already is being done in Jeddah and the Lucent plant. So definitely, I think we are in the right direction for many reasons.
MashaAllah, and it's always impressive to see, projects being announced in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, not only a single project to empower such a sector, but multiple mega projects. We heard of Lucid and then the factory of Lucid, and then production going to between 2024 and 2025 to have the first production of that factory in Jeddah, as well as now we hear of SEER, a new company. So it's like competitors by the same person. That's amazing. Now, whenever you hear about achievements, definitely achievements are highlighted and definitely appreciated. I got to go back to the achievement you talked about. When it comes to Mr. Day, when you talked about being ranked by the World Bank at King Abdullah Port, being ranked #1 last year. Now, that does have a lot of challenges to do with what rank he'll get this year, but as well, did it help within sustainability and innovation to be applied to the port to get to that rank, comparing it to the previous year, which you were number 2?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of that achievement is through infrastructure. So part of it is achieved through the geography of where the port is, the greenfield investment and the plan of the facility, and part of that is through efficiencies derived in the operations. So we're a port company. We move stuff around. That's what we do. We take containers on and off ships. We move them through the port to customs inspection, move them out on the gate, put them on trucks, and then they're distributed around the kingdom. Now, there's a lot of opportunities in there for efficiencies. And as I say, the waste in the system, inefficiency is something that you're going to want to avoid if you're going to hit your sustainable targets. One of the things that King Abdullah Port started 10 years ago was the introduction of what we call the port community system. And this plays very much into the discussions that Kolbein we were having outside earlier. In terms of the interaction, the digitization, the use of big data. So we developed this system, the port community system, that communicates between King Abdullah Port, the customers, the cargo owners, the government agencies, customs, the Food and Drug Association, and all of these entities then dealt with each other on a single window. So you can sit in an office anywhere in the kingdom effectively and clear and process your cargo in and out of the port. As a result, those people didn't need to come to the port. They would often come in a pickup, drive up to the port, process their documents. So these are fewer people coming on the road. These are fewer carbon emissions being generated because of that. I remember once measuring the amount of kilometers that in the old days people would have to do to process the customs. It would be between 7 and 10 kilometers that you'd have to drive from one office to another. Now you're sitting in your office with a cup of tea and you're processing the documents to the same extent. We're also working on a system with a government agency called Tabadul.
Yes.
I think I've seen a director of Tabadul here, so keen that he picks up on those comments. Congratulations on the new appointment. So this is a system that will help us to track and monitor the movement of trucks across the kingdom. So one of the advantages of being in our location is that we're close already to the petrochemical location in Yanbu and Rabah. We estimate that by avoiding transport to the port of Jeddah, we've taken about 2 million truck moves a year off the road. So that in itself is an impressive start. But when you monitor and manage the peaks and troughs of truck movements, then you can be more efficient in your planning. So when you're loading a ship, you want the trucks to come in at the right moment to put them in the stack to load them on the ship. You don't want a big traffic jam outside. You don't want congestion on the roads. And so this truck management system, mapping out through data the patterns and behavior of truck operators and drivers, means that the only person to physically have to come into the port is the driver for now. And that's another project we'll talk about in the future, because certainly within King Abdullah City, there's a huge potential for
autonomous vehicles.
driverless vehicles, yes.
Nice.
And so that that level of efficiency, not just through the infrastructure development, but through the automation, the processing, and the efficiency of digitizing and planning and mapping movement of people, trucks, and cargo within the port, helps drive the efficiency of sustainability, the reliability, the dependability of being able to hit those targets today and certainly in the future.
That's amazing. And I thank you for that. And I had the pleasure to sit with Tabadal and talk about, see a demo about what they did. It was absolutely amazing. That was back in GITEX a couple of weeks ago. And it's definitely impressive to see e-government in its fittest go into every sector and helping and minimizing time, leveling up efficiency, and having, inshallah, a very good, sustainable future being implemented. With that, I thank you very much, Mr. Jainu, CEO of CAP, King Abdullah Port, as well as Mr. Fuad Al-Zayer, independent consultant, energy sustainability, former head of data services at OPEC. Of course, I thank you here, Mr. Colbin, CEO of Deep Air UK, and as well, I should thank you for the thank you, and thank you, Mr. George, as well, for this event. Thank you for all the time, for the information, and looking forward for عالم يتجدد, an innovation for sustainable tomorrow. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohanad AlShaikh, CEO of JCI Arabia. Thank you. Thank you. That's a photo time. The panelists here. Okay.